Welcome everyone to the Show Must Go On webinar presented by Majic Productions. And now, here's your host, Michael Jurken.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to episode number 2 of the Show Must Go On, focusing on food and beverage, or F&B, I found out if you're in the biz. As they mentioned, my name is Michael Jurken. I am president and CEO of Majic Productions, coming to you live here from our studio in Waukesha, Wisconsin. A little bit about Majic Productions. We are a sound, video, lighting, fabrication, and integration company. We're based just outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. For our international viewers, that's Wisconsin's north of Chicago. We do productions, events, permanent installations. We started in 1999. We have a team of about 30 technicians, programmers, designers, drafters, builders, and artists. And we do events all around the world, all different sizes throughout the year. Today's agenda, we'll get right to it. We're going to recap what we talked about on episode number 1. Then we're going to kind of go into some brief industry updates as they appear to food and beverage specifically. And then we have awesome panelists today, trust me, and wrap it up. Please submit your questions as well so we can see what you'd like to see. So a brief recap of last week. First of all, I'm pretty sure I passed my kidney stone and I don't have one. So knock on wood that doesn't happen. But some of the things we talked about last week specifically were, how do you execute a successful webinar? What are some of the things that looks like? Also, what do a virtual fundraiser look like? What would that look like if you had a nonprofit event and you took it virtual? What are some of the initial events that are going to happen in COVID? We focus specifically a lot on like a drive-in graduation, a drive-in church ceremony, different things using wireless audio to kind of bring your event outdoors for those initial summer months. We also talked about some of the long-term industry shifts within the live events industry specifically. And lastly, we encourage all of our viewers, postpone, do not cancel. That's really what we want people to do, because live events will come back. They already are starting to. Our panelists were talking before here, more and more inquiries. People are getting more and more creative, doing unique ideas, smaller events, more impactful events for their key donors, all those fun things. So that's what we talked about last week. Some fun industry updates that we've kind of seen. We're starting now to finally get, a reality of what maybe some of these venues, some of these larger organizations are doing for safety plans. Specifically in the last couple of weeks, the Wynn Casino out in Las Vegas and many other large casinos out in Las Vegas are kind of saying, this is what it's going to look like post-COVID. This is how we can safely bring guests back. So it's fun to see some of those things, and we're going to briefly touch on some of those during our panelists today. Locally, we've had some restaurants such as Egg and Flower down in Bayview starting to install a temporary, plastic screen. So diners can still be, socially distant, but also have that extra level of security and safety so they're comfortable and come back to dining. So that's fun to see people, again, I talked about in the last webinar, this industry, the hospitality industry, we love to give and give and give. And so when our backs are against a wall, we're going to even get more creative and find more ideas to bring people to life. So we have it is Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. We have a 1-minute fun little quarantine margarita intro. So take it away, Dan, for a quick 60 seconds here to show us how to make a proper quarantine margarita.
Hey, everyone. To celebrate Cinco de Mayo, I thought it might be fun if I shared a margarita recipe with you. I try to keep it nice and simple. Well, I'm just using 12 ounces of frozen concentrate. I've got 12 ounces of limeade here. I've also got 12 ounces of lemonade. We'll get those added in right away. To dilute that a little bit, just another 12 ounces of regular old water. Next, we get to the fun stuff. Picking out your tequila. Definitely pick something that you like. My recommendation is always a nice reposado. Usually goes well with this. If you don't know what to pick, my rule of thumb, just grab something that's 100% pure agave. If you're not sure if it's 100% agave or not, just pour yourself a little glass, give it a taste. Yeah, sure, whatever. It's probably pure agave. We'll get that added in. Next, little triple sec, about 6 ounces of this, or half a can. We'll add that to our pitcher. Now we'll give it a nice stir. Now, for serving it, you can keep it simple. Salted rim, a couple of ice cubes in a glass, pour yourself a nice cocktail. So that's my quarantine margarita. It's probably not the best margarita you've ever had. It's probably not the worst, but I can guarantee you this. It'll get the job done. Cheers.
Oh, thank you, Dan, so much. If you do want the best margarita you could ever have, our panelists today, Shellys Cuisine and Events, actually are making and selling a Patron margarita kit online. You can check it out their website. And so they were gracious enough to bring some as well. So it comes with they have the salt with fresh lime zest, everything as well. So another option for some great Cinco de Mayo celebrating today. So now on to our panelists. We are so excited to have our panelists today. I'll go through and everyone can give kind of a brief introduction about their history and how they got into the food and beverage industry. We'll start things off with Sydney Waisanen, who is the Area Director of Catering Sales from Marcus Hotels and Resorts. Sydney, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, how you got into the industry?
Sure. Hi. First, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, I am the Area Director of Catering Sales for Marcus Hotels and Resorts. So that encompasses the Pfister Hotel, the Hilton Milwaukee City Center, and of course our newly opened St. Kate. And I oversee the team that books the events for our hotels. So we are the office in which you call and you meet with to book your wedding or your nonprofit gala, our annual conventions that we have going on. And we execute your events. So.
Yes, you do. Many of them throughout the year too, across all your properties. So excited to have you today to the Show Must Go On. And then from, I like to call them Team Shellys, we have Jacob, Nina, and Hadley. Jacob, could you tell us about your role over at Shellys?
Sure. Thanks for having us, Mike. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Jake Shully, General Manager here at Shellys Cuisine and Events. I oversee all operations. We're a family-run business. Our parents, Scott and Beth, started 37 years ago in Thiensville, Wisconsin, and we're the second generation here with Nina as an event planner and Hadley as our chef.
Executive sous chef.
Executive
sous chef. Excuse me.
Absolutely. Well, welcome, Team Shellys. We're very excited to have you all today. So why don't we start things off, Sydney specifically, we can start with you. I think all of us in this industry and all those watching along will kind of remember that March 12th, March 13th, you know, the Friday the 13th. I think it was a full moon too. So what was it like from being on a hotel side? You know, what was going on those March 12th, those March 13 days across your properties? You know, how did you deal with that as that was starting to happen?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, we have an incredible team surrounding us and supporting us. And those first couple days, the first day, the second day, there was still a lot of confusion about what exactly was happening and what the impact would be. You know, you were hearing, this is going to last a week, this is going to last 2 weeks. You know, at that moment in time, nobody really understood what this was going to be. So in those first couple of days, those, you know, early hours, what we were doing was just simply answering the phone and speaking with our customers and assuring them that it was going to be okay, and that their events that they've been planning for a year, their meetings that they were upcoming, that could still go on. And what you mentioned earlier, we were encouraging everybody to postpone. Please don't cancel. Let's postpone. We helped you find a date originally. We can do it again. And we have been able to do that. I have found, you know, in our business, we always have a saying that in the social market, social events will always happen, right? So birthdays are going to continue to happen. Anniversaries are going to continue to happen. Weddings are going to happen. Even though we're living in a different situation right now, they're going to happen. So anybody that was calling in those first couple of days and even in these last 6 weeks, they are interested in making sure that their celebrations and their events go on, and they are just looking to postpone at this time, which has been really great.
That's awesome. And now, Shellys, you guys primarily focus a lot on off-premise catering. What was going on with you guys kind of those first couple days, you know, that March 12th, March 13th? Did you guys have any, and you have a venue as well, did you have any events, you know, planned that week? Or how did you guys, do you remember those war stories?
Yes, sure. So Jake and I were both at the Lumineers concert that Wednesday with our different groups of friends. And I remember friends sitting there reading my phone that the NBA season was postponed or canceled. And so it was just kind of reality started sinking in as I was at the concert. And then I did have an event at our Watermark space that Saturday that, you know, the morning of, we had planned, the silent auction was totally set up. And then just was kind of like 10 a.m., 11 a.m., like we just, out of the safety of their guests, we can't move forward. So I was joking earlier that I feel like we've been living in a constant Friends episode where we are just pivoting. So, you know, just from that morning on, we collectively met as a family from 6 feet apart, of course, and just kind of hammered out what Shellys will look like moving forward. And it's a totally different format, but it's been really successful and creative. And we're very grateful for the support of our community and people like you know, bringing us on so we can talk about what we love to do.
Now, Jake, you guys originally, when did you have the idea to kind of pivot your business? I hate to use that word. We were joking about that when we were talking earlier today. When did you have that initial idea to kind of pivot and offer that, you know, a lot of us have seen with restaurants, you know, the curbside pickup but you guys as a catering company, you'd never really had a restaurant. You know, that wasn't really your main bread and butter, pun intended.
Right.
When did you guys have that idea to pivot to that?
Yeah, so actually we had been working on a drop-off style plan for the last few months before this all happened, because we had been seeing a lot of customers wanting, you know, simple dropped-off things with no service involved. So we had the groundwork laid for that. It was very different looking than what it looks like now, more corporate and bigger platter size things. So we had an idea of how that was going to look. And then from there, we spent that whole entire weekend, like Nina said, Saturday morning, we came up with the game plan, built out a website, got everything live going by that Monday. So we were able to get up, ready, and receiving orders in 2 days' notice, which has been huge for us.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now, Sydney, what about you guys? Have you started to think now, as we've kind of gotten through that initial shock, you know, that March 12th, that March 13th, we've kind of, I hate to say, settled into our new normal. As you guys are developing as a hotel, you know, what are you thinking about, you know, longer term, you know, are you thinking about maybe doing something with a staycation? You know, are you seeing people, you know, because I don't think people are necessarily in the initial are going to be wanting to get an airplane per se. What are you guys gearing up for some of those local options to kind of entice local tourism to your properties?
Sure. Well, and first, I'm going to backtrack just for a second, because I think the business that we're in, which is hospitality, is such an interesting business to be in this current time. You know, we're in the business of people. We are in the business of meetings. We are in the business of celebrations. And we're in a business where people touch, they shake hands, they hug as their son and daughter are walking down an aisle. And so much like the Shellys team said, we're pivoting to figure out what that is going to look like. And that even is with our travelers coming in too, not just the events. You know, we're going to continue to focus as a team. That's what we're currently doing. We're focusing as a team to figure out what it will look like for our hotels when we open up from a safety standpoint, because that's the most important thing for us right now, is to ensure that all of our guests and our staff will be safe once our doors are open again. And as we continue to learn and refine what that is going to be for our customer, I can assure you that when our doors do open, our staff is going to be there, and they're going to be there with a smile to greet every customer that comes in that door, because that is who we are as hospitality. We need you to come to our hotels, and we need you to share those moments with us again, because that is so important. And so when it is time and we are ready to open those doors again, we're going to ensure that we have every safety measure ready to go. And so, you know, we're backing up to the traveler. You know, I have been in my house for the last 8 weeks, and although I love my house, I am ready to see something new, as are my children. And although people aren't really ready to possibly jump on an airplane, we are looking at the drive-in traveler, and that could be anybody from Milwaukee or Brookfield, Waukesha, but it could also be from our friends in Minnesota, Iowa, Chicago, Illinois, you know, Michigan. Anybody that's looking to safely drive to another location to have an experience that they don't necessarily want to get on a plane to do. We will be ready, and we will be ready with our doors open to ensure it's safety for everybody.
Excellent. And now, Shelley, so you did the initial zero contact catering, you know, you could either deliver to someone's front porch or they could come pick up with zero contact. You guys actually kind of this last week also did a super cool thing for the new norm, and you guys actually hosted a virtual food and beer tasting with a tasting menu, the full, you know, I forget how many courses it was. I think it was four or five courses. How did that come about? And I think we might even have some pictures to show kind of some of the different courses that people picked up, and they actually, you know, eventually they took it home and then they heated it up, and you guys talked them through it. Can you talk through what that process looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's our first course,
Yeah,
cheese
let's
course.
go from Wisconsin, got to have the meat and
Yes,
cheese.
absolutely. Let's be real.
Yep.
But we got paired up with Third Space. They came to us with this wonderful idea, and we got to roll it out right away as fast as we could. So again, it was something that we were really excited to experience, do something different, trust the customer a little bit with heating up our own food. But just as our father has been saying this whole entire time, is adapt, adjust, move forward. And that's exactly what we wanted to do, is still have the full experience of a beautiful meal in your home with your family, tasting different experiences and having fun. So it was really great because Kevin Wright, the head brewmaster at Third Space, and I pre-taped how we felt about the courses, why we paired things with them. Pre-taped all of that, sent it out to everybody via email, and then we had a nice Q&A on Instagram Live later to talk with the two of us about any questions anybody had. So it was really fun and interactive, something different to do while everyone's sitting at home every single day because we can't get out and do anything. So yeah, it was such a cool experience, and we've got more events like that coming down the pipeline. So we're very excited about it.
That's super exciting.
And I think what was really cool about it too is that Hadley, it was because I'm a mom of two, so I was able to have, my kids were not drinking beer, but we had a beer dinner with my two daughters that were there, and we had kids meals that you could add on, and we have fun little kids activities. So it was actually kind of a really enjoyable night in our backyard because I got to spend it with my kids who normally don't come along to things like that. So it was really well done, and the food was really good. I'm biased, but it was delicious.
Right, absolutely. Talking about venues, Sydney, are venues going to have to, what are some of the changes venues are going to have to change, especially for a food service venue? Do you see capacities might have to change, especially initially in those first summer months as we kind of gear up? How do you think venues are going to change to this COVID?
Sure. Definitely, first and foremost, we're following the CDC and any size limitations that are given by the government. That's, very important. If there are size limitations, obviously we will deal with that when we come. We as a hotel, the things that you're going to see that might be a little bit different than what you're used to is there could be temperature checks, similar as what we did right when it all started. There's going to be hand sanitizer stations. There's going to be disinfecting foggers. We do have hotels in Milwaukee that have outdoor space, right? So we'll look at using outdoor space to allow for proper social distancing. And definitely, as our task force is looking at our event spaces and what we can accommodate safely, there is a chance that our capacities will change a little bit, right? So we're looking at how many people can safely be seated at a round table, a classroom table, or even theater style for a ceremony to ensure that the proper social distancing is in place. The other things that you might see that we're looking at is when you come into a hotel, and a lot of times if you've attended a meeting, the minute you have a break, what does everybody do? They go out into the foyer space as a group and they grab themselves a cup of coffee. They grab a cookie or a pastry, something to that effect. That's going to look a little different. We will probably have those stations manned with our staff who will be in PPE gear, gloves, masks. They will almost essentially take an order from you, hand you your coffee. Your pastry or cookie will no longer be a grab and go. It's going to be individually wrapped and handed to you, really to minimize the cross-contamination or the contact with another person. The touchless service, the communal tables, the buffets might be things that'll go away just for the time being to ensure safety. And those are traditions that hotels normally have that will just look a little bit different for a while.
Yeah, one of the questions, and again, please feel free to answer questions, was, do you see the food buffet, being a casualty of this? And to be fair, I think a lot of the events that this group is doing, I wouldn't call it a buffet per se, but they've doing a lot of live action stations and interactive stations. But, Jake, do you think that's something, or I guess I should ask Hadley, in the food, do you see the buffet, the traditional buffet being a casualty of COVID?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
But I feel like there are so many ways, just as Sydney was saying, that you can still adjust with it.
Yeah.
Making sure that it is chef manned, that it is properly handled with gloves and masks, and making sure that everyone is sticking to the rules, because that is the utmost importance to us as a company, is making sure that we are keeping everyone and our own staff healthy.
Yeah.
That's our number one goal. So yeah, it probably might get shifted a bit, but I don't think it's going to go away completely, because a buffet still is extremely nice experience, because people love variety. They don't like one thing, they like multiple things and lots of it. So we want to make sure that we're still kind of accommodating with what people want.
Maybe everyone gets their own tongs before the event.
Yeah.
There you go.
Individual, just from an event planning standpoint, individual portions of things are very kind of trendy, very popular. So that lends itself well to individual serving, keeping people healthy. So we've been doing a lot of things like we do these little movable cheese boards in a bamboo cone that are individual, so we already have a lot of these things in place. It's just reminding ourselves, okay, yes, let's put that more into place now and just get a little bit more creative with individual portions, which actually aesthetically looks really nice.
Definitely. Shelley, see one more question from the audience. And again, please feel free to answer our questions. We got lots of great questions coming in here. So you guys are still cooking and everything. How people are asking, how is it, because a lot of them might not be at work, and what are, some of the safety procedures and things with how, I think it was asking specifically staying on surfaces like napkins, china. I guess not that, but more so, how does the kitchen different than it may have looked in February of this year?
Well, the good news is our whole entire staff is ServSafe certified. So we always have had a very high cleanliness standard when it comes to being in the kitchen. Now everybody wears masks and gloves and changes them every 15 to however many times you need to. We just make sure that we're being very socially aware with our distance of one another, because kitchens can tend to be pretty tight. So we're staggering times of staff when they are in the kitchen, so we don't have too many in at the same time. So things like that we're kind of taking precautions on, and just making sure that we're hyper aware of it at all times.
Yeah, we also do have a temperature check before clocking in as well. Excellent. And we're not doing clock-ins. We're manually keeping track of hours, because it's a touch point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's everybody, and the people don't like hearing the phrase the new normal, but it's no different than after 9/11, how we adapted specifically in America. And it's kind of just becomes the new normal. Our tech's not seen any of you today. Like, how weird was that?
I know.
But we still can connect with each other via technology, see each other with technology. And it's definitely just kind of the new normal. One of the questions people are asking is, how does everybody feel about outdoor events? Are those going to be, or doing a cocktail hour outdoors? And have you guys thought about doing that, or Sydney, even any of your properties, maybe moving some of your restaurants and try to get some permits from the city to do some outdoor dining? How have you guys thought about that?
Sure, I can start.
Yeah.
Definitely not all of our properties have outdoor event space, but for instance, our Hilton Milwaukee City Center does. We have a space that's called 6th and Green. It's this beautiful green space, and it would allow for people to have a really lovely cocktail reception, even a sit-down dinner, and allow for us to spread out the tables a bit more and comfortably seat everybody. As far as our restaurants go, some do have the outdoor dining, and that is definitely an option for them to utilize. I think the biggest thing that everybody's going to have to really understand is the distance between tables, how many chairs can go at a table. And I think once that is fully understood, I think everybody's going to be able to serve people very safely.
Absolutely. Great questions. Again, please be, I'm looking over the screen to get some. Somebody's asking, are you all in the same building? How is this working? So yes, I briefly touched on it, how we couldn't see it. I'm in my office, so welcome to my office this week. The Shellys team is where I was on episode number 1. So they are in our main studio space, and then Sydney's in a smaller studio space as well. So we all had separate entrances to enter in through. And the technicians that are here are wearing masks, and also have, again, even in the sound and lighting, we have the temperature checks and wearing a mask on site. It's just kind of the new normal, but that is how it's all working, and then coming together as well. So great question. For events that are happening before a vaccine may be available, will you require guests to sign a waiver to release your organization from liability? So have you guys thought about that at all? So I guess I'd say specific to F&B, have any of you thought of that?
general manager.
Yeah, right.
I gotta talk to my lawyer about that. I think there's a lot of gray area with that still in terms of who has liability and coming back. So I think we're waiting to see where that hashes out in the government.
Yep, absolutely. And I think one of the crazy part, and I think this is what makes the virus so tough for everybody, and especially me living with a self-proclaimed germaphobe, but you really don't know, I mean, that's the tough part, where you can pick it up, or, and they're still learning, but I think the nice part is that and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have probably read many more articles about this before, but I believe the CDC has said that it cannot be transmitted via food
That's correct.
as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
cool.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
One of the things that, we talked about briefly as a group when we were going into this was, how that back of house honestly has to kind of come front of house. Sydney, you started as, back of house. How do you think you're going to be prepared to have, bring those back of house, front of house in front of people more to see? Whether it's wearing, wiping down the surfaces in front of, like what are some of the things that you can see back of house that you guys do?
Sure.
Or separating workstation, how are we going to bring some of those front of house?
Sure. I think, the magic of hospitality is that it happens, right? So events always magically happen. The hotels are cleaned magically, right?
Yeah.
It's not magic. There are really hardworking people that make that happen. And sometimes you don't always see those people. But guess what? I think you're going to start to see those people. From the minute you walk into the hotel and you touch a door surface or an elevator button, there's going to be somebody right there to go ahead and make sure that is disinfected and sanitized every single touch. Same with if you go, we say at the Pfister, our 7th floor, that's where the majority of our large events happen. When you're on the 7th floor, you're going to see our staff out there, again, with the masks and the gloves, and they're going to make sure that if somebody is touching something or if they see something that needs to be sanitized, they're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to be sanitizing rooms between every single use. You're going to see kind of the magic behind the curtain a little bit. And it's strictly for safety and so everybody knows that they're in really great hands and they can meet and they can celebrate and they can do it safely.
Yeah. Christina, I saw a question saying, masks on servers seem so impersonal and scary for guests. And I agree, like when you think of that, it's, it is because it's not something that we're used to seeing. But Shellys, for me personally, like for example, I've been a customer of Shellys and ordered the contactless, when Jake comes dropping off the food, wearing a mask and gloves at our house on our front porch, I mean, whether or not it does something or not, I'm like, wow, I think it's almost like a badge that, Shellys is taking this seriously. What is your opinion on that? Do you think they're scary?
No, no, not when you have cute
You should see,
floral
you should see Nina has a Lily Pulitzer one. I don't know if you have it accessible.
It's on.
I
it's too
dropped
far.
it.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
But
Here, wait.
What are some ways?
This isn't that scary.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's
Yes.
not as special.
We
as,
look good.
No.
This is a
And I think too, Mike, what you were saying is that it really is, I think it's a comfort level. I know I've gone to other restaurants, tried to support our local communities, particularly Thiensville and Milwaukee. And I do feel really good when I see somebody in a mask and gloves. And just kind of a fun twist on that, there's actually a linen company in the area, and they made masks out of some of their tablecloths. So you can actually match your masks to the linens for your wedding. So we can get really matchy and kind of fun and creative, a little less scary. But just kind of a fun twist.
Yeah, but I feel like if the nurses and doctors can be doing this all day, every day, then we can too.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are literally on the front lines. So if they can do it, we can.
Yeah. And I think too, just to answer my thoughts on the question one more time too, but if that means, getting to events again, to make people feel that security, I think it might not be as scary, and impersonal as it does that. Wow, like we can still get together and have fun. It just might look a little different, but great question on that. Let's move on. More legal advice, right? Back to the GM. But this is, and I don't want to get too intense here, but contracts are a big part. And, two of us on small business, and Sydney, obviously with Marcus. But what can event planners and, can they write, for example, in saying that we want all of our servers to wear a mask? Like, is that a possibility?
I think, you want me to go first? I think, at this point, everything is a conversation.
Yeah.
Whatever it's going to take to make somebody comfortable, I think our organization will certainly do our best to accommodate. We've always been in the business of accommodating requests. This is no different, quite frankly. And, if it's going to make a bride or a groom or whomever it might be feel more comfortable to have us go that extra step, we 100% will do that to ensure that guests can meet in our hotels. Yes, 100%.
Awesome. And I think the other thing too is for event planners, especially, is to just work with, call all of us. All of us are eager to be doing work and everything. I think it's just really just having that conversation with them. Sydney, I really want to book this event in, December of this year, our holiday party. But, I'm concerned about, whether this is. I'm sure Sydney will be like, hey, let's get the date down, let's plan on it, and we'll be flexible. I think that's really key. So to all of our venues, from a subcontractor side of a venue, like, be flexible with your clients, because you guys are really that first.
Yes.
And Marcus has just been honestly really above and beyond what a lot of other venues are doing too, because realize it affects companies like me.
Yeah.
If Marcus is saying, no, sorry, we need, $100,000 today for your holiday party, or it can't happen, people probably aren't going to do that. So I think that's really a great question. So again, back to communication, having relationships. So good question to Jesse. Stephen, if you could scroll up maybe a little, let's see. More questions. Oh, awesome, or down, either or. Down, perfect. We have a specific event for Sydney again. Let's say we have a large event on really specific, 7th floor of the Pfister that has food during a break. How does that look in the new way? And you were talking about some of this when we meet before. Are you spread it out more, or have staff more? What do those break times look? Or how, if I'm downtown for a meeting, how am I going to go to your coffee shop and grab a quick coffee or a bite? Do you think that's going to look like?
So, and we were talking a little bit about this off camera too before we started. There's a couple different ways I think it can look. So we do events for 10 people, 20 people, 500 people. It's all going to depend on what size the event is. But take, let's say, a 250 person meeting, right? They're meeting in our grand ballroom at the Pfister, 10 a.m. It's time for those doors to open. It's time for everybody to stretch their legs, check their emails. They're going to go out and grab the coffee or, the snack. That may be different, right? As I mentioned earlier, it might be our staff serving the customer versus them grabbing and going. There also might be more of kind of break rooms set up. So that way, maybe there's 10, right? There might be 10 people going to this space, 20 people going to this space. Limit the amount of people in one area to, again, limit exposure. And I think very similar to if you're at Pfister and you're at our cafe, which has the Starbucks, the really beautiful thing about that setup already is we do have the glass there to protect not only the customers and the staff, but also the food. So that will, run pretty similar. We'll take your order, we'll hand it to you. The biggest thing that will be different will likely be the space between a customer. We're so used to people coming into our cafe and they're being greeted with a handshake, or a lot of our regulars are giving hugs to our servers. That's going to feel a little bit different. There's going to have to be a little bit of space.
Boundaries. Yeah, no, totally. We have a question on PPE, and both of you, we'll start with Shelley's answer. So you guys, as a catering company, are incurring more costs, currently right now. Is that something that you've thought about? Is that going to be, kind of like a lot of caterers or venues have had a service charge? Are you thinking about doing a PPE service charge, or any recommendations? Or are you just kind of building that into your costing?
That's a really good question.
I know, right? It's great to see all of them.
Yeah. So right now, I believe we're just kind of, working the way we always have. And I know it's been kind of, in the kitchen, it's been an internal expense purchasing PPE for our staff that we take care of for our staff that's working at Shellys right now. But I suppose if you're looking into like custom linen masks, there may be an additional cost for that. But honestly, I think that's a really good question and something to think about. Yeah. Food for thought, whoever asked that question. But because they certainly are expensive, masks that we purchase, we're certainly not cheap.
Especially right now, right?
Yeah.
It's
Right.
Yes.
supply and demand. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, food for thought. Good question.
Sydney, have you thought about any of that either from a restaurant side? Is there a surcharge for a restaurant on like a sales tax, or on the larger event side? Have you? Or
You know,
TBA?
Yeah, I think that much, what they had just said too. This is all a piece that is new for all of us and something that we're all still trying to figure out. Now, do I think this is going to become part of a uniform for a little bit of time here? Yes,
Yeah.
I do. And so I think we're still all trying to figure out what that's going to look like and what that would mean for the customer.
Yeah, no, I mean, and Marcus you guys have done such a great job with the PPE, same as Shellys beforehand. I think one of the things too, another question that brought up, do you guys, and Hadley, you're going to cringe when you hear me say this, but I would say recently, the last year or two, the trend in catering has just totally 180 probably than what it was for really 30 years even. And it was getting much more custom and much more gourmet, and you wouldn't even think you're eating catering food.
Yeah.
As we go to post-COVID world in these initial events, do you see that maybe we go back to more of a standard, catering menu?
Yeah.
This is how we execute, this is how it can be done safely.
Yeah.
And it's beef Wellington,
Right.
that's it.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening?
I do. Yeah. I do see a lot of those things getting standardized. Our company is known for the fact that we do custom cater. We still really want to keep to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're still custom writing things. We just have to make sure that everyone is following their budgetary constraints, because that is a huge factor right now. So we want to make sure that we're fitting within that mold. But yes, there will be standardized things that kind of are going to be coming about through menus that you'll see going forward.
Perfect.
But, it's all workable. It's all a conversation that we just need to find out and suss it out through the customer and what they want and need. And then we can go from there.
Definitely. Sydney, do you see any standardization, if you will?
Much like Shellys, we too sort of thrive on custom menus, not only for our weddings, but our nonprofit galas, right? Everybody wants something to be a little bit different. And funny enough, I'm actually working with a customer who is not a rebooked customer. It's new business, which is wonderful because people are still getting engaged, as we talked about. And this bride asked me, she said, is family style an option? And 8 weeks ago, of course, that's an option. Absolutely. Anything is an option. We want to make your day about you and what you want. Is family style an option? And the answer I gave her was potentially, but in a year from now, we're going to have that conversation if it is safe to allow. And if it is, sure, of course. But if we're still under certain constraints, then we'll just have to really, I'll use Shelley's word, pivot and, have a different conversation.
All right. So now I'm getting a lot of flack because people keep asking this. So it's a yes or no question. Is the buffet dead? Jake, what's your opinion? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Yeah, no, maybe. Nina, yes or no?
In 2020, yes, but 2021, it will come back.
Perfect. Cool. Hadley?
I agree with my sister.
Agree. Okay. Sydney?
The self-serve buffet, yes.
Okay. Cool. In perpetuity, or will it be back in 2021?
I think it'll be back. And I think, but much like Nina was saying, I think if a staff served buffet is maybe still an option.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's
customer service buffet, not right now.
I mean, the hospitality industries specifically, we do a lot of cruise work, and I mean, they've been dealing with, different health issues throughout the, forever. And we've really never been more equipped to deal with something like this. I remember even on cruise ships, back in the day, this is a long time ago, but they would actually go through and you were next in line and there'd be a service member that would, serve the food for you. So, I mean, all these things, we've never been equipped better. We are the best industry to have this happen to because we love service. We love making people feel comfortable and happy. Right. So I think that's what we really need to stress is that the people on this call and the people watching the venues, like we're all willing and ready and fully capable of making this happen. Yeah. So,
and there are no judgments when we're serving you.
Yeah.
Buffet. Okay.
You can take 3 helpings of the mashed potatoes.
Don't worry about
it. It's okay.
Yeah. Someone just chimed in and said that the buffets are merely hibernating.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Another question. So again, we talked about that virtual beer dinner. You do have someone on who actually attended that and loved it. They said it was great. But they are asking, are you guys thinking about doing something similar? And if possible, would you be able to share something like that? Or
Yes. Well, we're in the works right now.
Okay.
We can't say who we are going to be pairing up with, but it is definitely going to be hopefully coming out really soon. But I'm so excited about it. I love doing this. I really do. I think they're so much fun. So I guess I'll give a little hint as to maybe the idea of what it is that we want to do. We're thinking of playing with the idea of doing a supper club theme.
Cool.
So kind of playing on that and having a little fun with some supper club, traditional classic.
That's
good
awesome.
stuff.
Yeah.
Typical Wisconsin.
Yeah, you know, we know our
Our crowd.
our crowd.
Definitely. You know, Sydney, one of the things we talked about when we were prepping for this session was, you know, especially this year, and Louise is asking this question, that, you know, this year events are going to be kind of different, but do you see a trend, you know, especially as we get into, you know, August, September of producing, let's say I'm a nonprofit organization and I have, you know, I usually have an annual fundraiser dinner that has 250 people. Do you see me maybe doing 5 of those events for 50 people and really elevating the experience, having a super great food, super great wine? Do you see that being a trend to kind of be through the rest of this year?
I think, you know, I think there's so many possibilities out there right now. I mean, we've all heard the virtual event, and we've watched many of our partners that we've had their events. They're doing the virtual event right now. You know, we certainly hope that everybody will come back to us. You know, we have always found that nonprofits and galas, they really, really thrive on that human connection, right?
Absolutely.
So the mission, the stories, and being together to share that. Now, to your point, doing that with 500 people right now is going to be difficult, right?
Yeah.
But I loved it because that was actually your idea. So I'm going to give you credit, Mike. I think it was a really good idea. That potentially, yes, having multiple smaller events going on at one time or on different nights is genius. And I think that is absolutely something we would be able to accommodate and be open to, and work with the customer to figure out what's going to be the best fit for them.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Well, and it's a shameless plug because at the end we'll preface the next, but it is on execute. How do you execute? What do these, you know, 50-person events look like? So that's actually gonna be episode 3 of this, but we'll talk about that. So, all right, well, we're conscious of everybody's time. We want to keep this towards, you know, 45 minutes or so. So maybe, do you guys have any last words or anything you'd like to touch on, or else we can go to the question, or Team Shellys, or any final thoughts on this process, how it's been with COVID, and, you know, how you see the future?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been a scary time for everybody across the world, but it's also an exciting time for innovation and ways to think outside the box. And we've, you know, left no stone unturned in ways that we can get creative and keep delivering great food that people really want to have. Maybe in a different environment, different setting, but we're going to be here trying to provide the best food that we can for everybody that's having to stay at home.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for them to, again, check out, it's shellyscuisine.com, correct?
Correct.
Yep, so shellyscuisine.com. That's a test to try to spell that out.
Don't worry about it.
Can you still?
Shully.
Yep. And then cuisine. The cuisine is what I was more stressed about. And is it too late to get Cinco de Mayo, or what time is the order cut off for Cinco de Mayo?
5 o'clock. I think we're basically run out of all
sold
our
out?
food.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So next year.
Margaritas are still going.
Margaritas and chips, which is all you really need.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
chips are the best. And also Mother's Day is coming up.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so we
check
have
out
Mother's Day
Yep,
brunch.
excellent. And Sydney, any final thoughts for you? I think Jake kind of brought up a good point, is it's like, it's not going away.
No.
Like, people need to eat, people need to feel connected. You know, any final thoughts for you, or that you'd like to share with any of your vendor partners or clients?
Sure. I mean, it's definitely been an interesting 8 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And I will say, the one thing I have really seen is that something I mentioned earlier is these events are still happening.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm still getting emails every day. I am still getting phone calls every day from newly engaged couples who are so excited to plan their wedding. You know, people are planning for the future, and we are here, and we are open, and we are ready to talk to you to do that. And we will be there when we officially open our doors, I should say, every step of the way, to make sure that that event is planned the way you want it planned, that it's safe for your guest to attend, and we'll just be there with you know, bells on, ready for you.
Absolutely. Well, excellent. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. You guys have been quite the panel. We will be back, I think, on May 19th will be episode 3 of this, if I got my date correct. Yeah, May 19th. And we will be focusing for episode 3 specifically on, it's going to be called Size Doesn't Matter, how to create signature events with smaller guest counts. And we'll be joined with David Caruso and Ken Hudak from Canopy's Events. So we'll send an email out to register, but magicpro.com, register. /register if you want to sign up for that. Again, thank you everyone for coming. Check out Shellys Cuisine on Facebook and Instagram, as well as their website if you'd like to order food at shellyscuisine.com. Also check out Marcus, all their fine properties and hotels, whether it's the Pfister, the St. Kate, and make sure to like and follow them on social media as well. Be safe, everybody. Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
You guys have a good one.
Thank you. Take care. Be well, everybody.
All right.
Bye. Bye-bye.